What makes a good economist? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer? Well, it might not be what you think. So let's get into it. So what is it? What truly makes a good economist? Is it about how many articles they read or maybe how many papers they get published? We often have this image of an academic just surrounded by piles of books. But is that the real measure of success in this field? I'm going to propose a totally different metric. Just for a moment, forget about the publications. The real test, the true sign of a good economist, is their ability to predict future events. It's all about looking at the world and making an educated and sometimes gutsy call on what's going to happen next.
So, our first big idea here is using prediction as the ultimate benchmark. But why prediction? Well, because it's tangible, it's real, and it has actual real-world consequences.
Let's put this in really simple terms. Okay, imagine you have two economists. One predicts 10 major events and gets 6 of them right. The other predicts the same 10, but only gets 4 right. Now, neither one is perfect, right? But the first economist is demonstrably better. It's not about being flawless, it's about failing less. And that's the crucial point. Now, this idea is definitely not without its challenges. The brilliant economist, Ludwig von Mises, who was a huge figure in the Austrian school, argued that prediction is fundamentally impossible in economics. Why? Because human behavior and all the factors at play, they're never stable. And honestly, he has a very, very strong point.
But here's a really powerful counterargument. If prediction were truly impossible, how could the entire insurance industry even exist? I mean, think about it. Insurers can't predict if you specifically will get into a car accident next Tuesday, but they can predict, with a high degree of confidence, the total number of accidents in a city over a whole year. So prediction is possible, just maybe not in the way we first think.
So, if prediction is the goal, what makes it so incredibly difficult? Let's break down the 2 biggest hurdles that every economist has to face. The first hurdle is the temporal horizon, which is really just a fancy way of saying how far into the future you're trying to look. Take Bitcoin, for example. Predicting its price for tomorrow? You might have a decent shot. In a year? Okay, it gets a lot harder. But 10 years from now? That's pretty much impossible. The further out you go, the fuzzier the picture gets. And that fuzziness leads us directly to the second hurdle, the stability of the phenomenon. This is where economics is really, really different from a field like astronomy. See, astronomers can predict an eclipse decades in advance, not because it's simple, it's incredibly complex, but because the laws of physics governing planets are stable, and the variables are bounded. Economics, on the other hand, is dealing with the constant, ever-changing chaos of human behavior. Now, facing these hurdles, an economist isn't empty-handed. They have a toolkit designed specifically to make sense of all this chaos, so let's take a look at what's inside. First and foremost, data. You can have the best theory in the world, but without high-quality data, it's pretty much useless. Data, like these inflation rates you see here, is the raw material for any economic prediction. Without it, you're just guessing. And sometimes the most valuable contribution an economist can make is simply collecting and organizing this data. You have pioneers like Angus Madison, who dedicated their entire careers to compiling historical databases, giving us a window into economic trends that stretch back for centuries. That work is absolutely crucial. The second tool is the model. Now, a mathematical model isn't some kind of crystal ball. It's much better to think of it as a structured way of learning. For instance, a model might try to predict inflation based on unemployment rates. If the prediction is wrong, the model gets adjusted. It's this continuous process of getting closer and closer to the truth by learning from your mistakes.
But even with the best data and the best models, there is one final skill that separates the good from the great, and it's maybe the most important skill of all.
It's the ability to identify the signal. A signal is the meaningful information. It's that significant, underlying trend that has a real, concrete explanation. It's the story that the data is trying to tell. And to find this signal, you have to be able to cut through the noise. Noise is all that random, short-term static that fluctuates without a clear cause. It's the distracting information that can easily lead you down the wrong path. Just think about the history of the S&P 500. The 2008 financial crisis, the Great Depression, those were massive signals. But all those day-to-day little ups and downs, for the most part, that's just noise. A great economist is someone who can look at all this chaos and see the underlying direction of the river, not just the little chaotic eddies on the surface.
So what's the takeaway here? We started by asking what makes a good economist, and we've seen it's less about academic prestige and way more about the tough, messy work of prediction. And this leaves us with one final question. Is economics an exact science, like astronomy, or is it something else entirely, the art of learning from a reality that is constantly changing?